Inés Valentina de Perez was the ideal woman that every man wanted. She was beautiful and vibrant, turning heads everywhere she went. Her being the only daughter of the Duke of Valentina was also one of the many reasons why she was wanted. But that all changed when she married Oscar Valenza de Ortega, the crown prince of the Ortega imperial family. She loved him, but all she got in return was pain and suffering. Hopeless, Inés took her own life in front of her husband, with the purpose of tarnishing his name for ruining her. When she received another chance at life, Inés vowed to herself to do everything in her power to not marry the crown prince, and to take her sweet revenge on the man who took everything away from her. That revenge would start with Oscar's cousin, Carcel Escalante de Esposa. They were just kids when Inés Valentina and Carcel Escalante first met. That was when Inés was supposed to be betrothed to the crown prince. Knowing what was going to happen if she married him, Inés decided to take matters into her own hands. When she saw Oscar's cousin, Carcel, she pointed at him and announced that he was the one he wanted to get married with. Young Carcel was surprised. But he knew that he didn't want to get married to young Inés. He cried when he learned that once they reached a proper age, he'd get married to Inés. But Inés didn't care about his opinion. She chooses him, and that's what matters. Now, at the age of 23, Carcel has grown up to be such a fine young man. Women desired him. And he liked the attention he'd always receive. After 17 years of being engaged to Inés, Carcel still hates the idea of getting married to her. So, for years, he spent his freedom playing around with different women. He cheated on Inés again and again, without a hint of guilt. Carcel didn't want to live like a monk, so he kept up his infidelity with a promise of changing his scoundrel-like ways once they got married. One night, Carcel was in yet another session with a woman when Inés appeared, staring at him with those cold eyes. Inés didn't say anything about it, and for 2 weeks, she ignored Carcel, who had been trying to talk to her. Having had enough, Carcel visited Inés at the Valentina residence. He tried explaining himself, assuming that he had hurt Inés' feelings. But Inés shrugged him off, telling him that she doesn't care about his infidelity. Carcel was dumbfounded. He has always thought Inés genuinely loved him, and that was why she chose him. So, to find out that she doesn't have any interest in him felt like a huge smack to his pride. He remembered when his cousin, Oscar, talked to him when they were still kids. Oscar was angry that Inés chose Carcel instead of him. They both went to Inés, with Oscar hoping to change Inés' mind. Oscar bragged about himself, telling young Inés that he was a better choice than Carcel. But Inés still chose Carcel in the end. Young Inés has told young Carcel how much she likes him. He didn't have to like her back, as long as he knew that she liked him a lot. So, to hear Inés say that she's not interested in him, Carcel knew there was something wrong. He questioned where things went wrong. When did Inés' feelings change? And the moment Inés started showing disinterest in him, that was also the moment things changed for Carcel. He started noticing Inés' growth and how she'd grown up so beautifully. Carcel kept on bothering Inés, asking her why she had no interest in him. But Inés simply made sure he knew that she didn't love him in the slightest. After that day, Carcel couldn't stop thinking about her. It reached the point where no other woman could make him feel good anymore. Inés became the only one who could spark something inside of him. Things went worse for Carcel when Inés attended the same event as him and when they both went to Carcel's home using the same carriage. Carcel felt uncomfortable as he kept feeling things because of Inés. Inside his home, Inés told Carcel that he could still do whatever he wanted after marriage. The two of them would continue living their own lives how they want to without interfering with each other's personal lives. Just as long as they did it privately so as not to disrespect the names of both families. Inés clarified that she's allowing him to do whatever he wants even after marriage because she wants him to be free despite being married and that she knew he didn't like her. And that it's both in their favor if they stay out of each other's businesses. But Carcel refused. He didn't love Inés and has cheated multiple times. But for some reason, Carcel hated the idea of being married to Inés only in papers, as they do whatever they want. He assumed that just like him, Inés also has other men besides him, which is why it's so easy for her to treat their marriage like nothing. Then, Carcel kissed Inés before promising that he wouldn't need freedom at all once they got married and that she'd be the only woman for him. It surprised Inés. She thought that it would be easy for Carcel to agree to her idea, and now that she has been proven wrong, Ines is frustrated that she's now having a problem with her plans because of Carcel. Marrying Carcel has been a part of Ines' plan all along. It was so she could avoid marrying the crown prince and take revenge on him at the same time. Ines has a secret. Dark secrets. That secret was that she had lived several lives. Her first life ended at the age of 26, when she killed herself because of Oscar Valenza de Ortega. In her first life, Ines got married to the crown prince. She fell in love with him. Only for Oscar to destroy her life. The once vibrant Ines became dull. Oscar cheated on her multiple times. He got infected with diseases that he got from sleeping around with different women. Not only that, Oscar would always force himself on Ines. Ines was impregnated 4 times. And 4 times, Ines had miscarriages. It was because of Oscar, who kept on forcing himself on her even while she was still pregnant, and infecting Ines with his diseases, that all 4 of their unborn children died. For all the babies she lost. Ines was blamed by the imperial family and the empress. They verbally assaulted her, believing that Oscar was innocent. Hurt by the life she was leading, Ines decided to take her own life, leaving a will that would reveal the filthy sexual escapades of her husband. Ines didn't think that she would be given a second chance at life, not even a third chance. In Ines' second life, she was back to her teenage self, wherein she would be wed to Oscar in 4 months. Ines didn't want to get married to him and wanted to find true love, not the torture of a marriage Oscar gave her. So, when love hit her, Ines grabbed it by the throat. Ines ran away with Emiliano, a portrait artist's assistant, and despite living a poor life, the couple was happy. But then, 4 years later, Emiliano was killed at the hands of her own brother, Luciano. Luciano took her back to Duke Valestina's residence, along with her and Emiliano's baby. One day, Ines overheard her father and brother talking about eliminating her baby. In fear of her baby's suffering, Ines decided to kill her own baby before taking her own life again. Ines was given yet another chance, and this time she went back to her kid self before their parents decided to wed Ines and Oscar off. So, Ines created a plan, and she set that plan into motion during an event, the moment that she set her eyes upon Carcel. Everything was going well. For 17 years, things went peacefully. That was until Carcel decided to take their marriage seriously. Meanwhile, Carcel got his subordinate to spy on Ines to see if she had another man. But his subordinate came with nothing, which proves that Ines is not cheating on him just like he's been cheating on her. But Carcel discovered that the women he's been cheating with have also been spying on Ines to find dirt to use against her. 10 days before the wedding, Carcel is dining with the Valestina family. Duke Valestina, Ines' father, was interrogating Carcel. He knew of Carcel's infidelity, so now he's questioning Carcel, asking him why he should let Carcel marry his daughter. Ines butted in and defended Carcel. There, Carcel learned that Duke Valestina wanted to call the engagement off, and the sole reason he was still engaged to Ines was because of Ines herself. Carcel thought that while Ines didn't love him like that, she still wanted to marry him. After lunch, Carcel was walking with Ines' mother, who was complaining about Ines and asking Carcel to fix her daughter. She talked about Ines' disappointing appearance, how evil she was, and how she punished her by putting her inside a barrel, thinking that it was a good thing to do to discipline her own daughter. Carcel was baffled by what he heard. He couldn't believe that a mother would think abusing her own child is normal and is only for the good of her child. Such a messed up mindset for a mother. Later that day, Carcel and Ines were talking about Carcel's sudden decision to change the wedding date to 2 weeks' time. Ines once again made it clear that Carcel had no obligation to stay faithful to her. And Carcel concluded that Ines was trying to brainwash him. Carcel refused to live separately from Ines after marriage, claiming that while he's not in love with her, she is still going to be the most important woman in his life after marriage. Therefore, it's only right for them to do what married couples do. To prove it, Carcel kissed Ines, only to receive a slap from her. Ines made sure to let Carcel know that she stands by her decision, but they would still try to produce offspring for the betterment of both families. Days passed after the talk, and it was already the day of the wedding. The two had a quiet and peaceful wedding, as only the imperial family and the 17 noble families were invited. Though Ines blew everyone away with her unexpected beauty, Ines has always hidden herself inside her all-black clothes, which makes everyone think she resembles a crow. To see her in such a dazzling white dress surprised everyone, who started looking at Ines in a different light. As Ines was dancing with Luciano, Carcel was standing by the side, staring at Ines with wide eyes, taking in his bride's beauty. That was until a son of a noble family stood beside him, gracing the groom with his unwelcome presence. The guy was Dante Ihar, the eldest son of Duke Ihar. When Duke Valestina and Carcel were talking, Duke Valestina mentioned Dante as one of the pristine young men who were more deserving of Ines. But Carcel knew better. Dante is not the righteous man everyone thinks he is. Dante is just another young man who loves fooling around with many women. The two men talked about Ines' beauty. Dante thinks Carcel would get bored of Ines and would soon go looking for another woman. So, thinking that Carcel would be fine with it, Dante asked Carcel to let him have a taste of Ines once he got bored of her. Angry, Carcel retorted that if Dante ever gets tired of living, he is more than willing to kill him. After walking away from Dante, Carcel was then approached by Oscar, who did nothing but belittle him throughout the whole conversation. After getting rejected by Ines, Oscar secretly kept trying to woo her, but to no avail. He got engaged to another woman but refused to marry her, with the excuse that the woman looked so young. In reality, he just wanted to put off the wedding because he wanted a chance with Ines. Oscar then tried drinking wine from Ines' cup but got blocked by Carcel, who downed the wine in Ines' cup instead. After all that talk, Carcel couldn't help but feel possessive over Ines, clearly seeing how the men in the room were suddenly taking an interest in his wife. Meanwhile, after the wedding, Ines is conversing with her personal maid, Juana, about the wedding. Juana was disappointed at how shallow people can be, as everyone looked down on Ines before simply because she wasn't flaunting her beauty around, and now that they saw her in her wedding gown, they suddenly have an interest in her. Not to forget the men who were making a move on her right after her wedding. Ines, on the other hand, simply shrugged it off with a smile. She had no need to fret over immature people when her plan was working perfectly well. After all, that was just the beginning of her perfect revenge.